Hello and welcome to Mabina TV. This is home of Compassionate Conservatism, where we advocate for a fine balance, a sweet spot between individual creative genius excellence as supported by capitalism and society excellence as supported by equality of opportunity. So in essence, you are calling for capitalism with a human first. That is capitalism with a human first. So for now, this is ideas, and in ideas I'm asking that is, I'm asking about small business hours. So when someone wants to start a business, can we come together? We come together, then we bring them. We bring them valuable items. We bring them pens. We bring them invoices. We bring them office desks, office chairs, and then basically even become their first customer, so that when they're going to start their business, then basically we become their first customers. And I think it is very hard for someone to start a business, so they need all the encouragement they can. I think when you get a job, everyone congratulates you. When you get a job, everyone wishes you well. Everyone says you have solved your problems, now you are going to get an income. But why is it that when you want to start a business, everyone discourages you? They say, how sure are you the business will succeed? How sure are you the business will do well? So I think we should be teaching our kids about that is small, about starting business. I think it is very hard for a parent to imagine their kid is going to start a business. I think a lot of parents imagine their kids are going to get a good job, let's say in the fancy, if they go to a fancy college like Harvard or Yale or Princeton or MIT or Stanford, they imagine their kid is going to get a fancy job, let's say in the MBB, that is McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, or Bain& Capital, that is they're going to get a good consulting job, or in auditing, that is KPMG, Deloitte, Instant, yeah, or PwC. So they imagine that their child is going to get a good job in these entities. And I think a survey shows that about over a third of college graduates usually go into finance and consulting. So when a parent is spending enormous amounts of money on school fees, or even extra tuition for their kids, extra coaching for their kids, they hope they are going to get a good job. But they don't hope, why don't we teach entrepreneurship? Why don't we teach our kids entrepreneurship? And I think that's maybe what we need to ask. Why don't we teach our kids entrepreneurship? And I think if we taught our kids entrepreneurship, then they will be able to maybe go over and start a business. And I think what America lacks, or what the world lacks, is there are too few good companies. And I think if we taught entrepreneurship to our kids, then they will be able to start businesses. And I think what we need to start teaching our kids is the propensity to save and propensity to invest. I think when you teach your kids the propensity to save and propensity to invest, then basically you are teaching them that basically if you get 1 shilling today, save 50 cents, save 20% of that money so that it goes into a savings box. And I think if we taught our kids the propensity to save and propensity to invest, then basically we will be teaching them to be self-sufficient. And I think, frankly, if there are more kids in America being taught the propensity to save and propensity to invest, there will be more kids who are going to start businesses. I don't know why starting of businesses is frowned upon by a lot of parents. I think a lot of parents, I think when they are asking their kids what career they would like to be in future, very few of them say they want to be entrepreneurs. But entrepreneurs don't get the same limelight. Entrepreneurs in our society don't get the same prestige, don't get the same recognition as, say, maybe athletes or actors or singers or musicians for that matter. So I think entrepreneurship can open new opportunities. And I think there's a lot of money that needs to go into encouraging our youngsters to be able to launch the ideas, to be able to work on the ideas, so that they can come with thriving companies then that can employ a majority of Americans. I think a survey shows only about 6% of Americans are self-employed. That is only about 6% of Americans are entrepreneurs. So it means 94% of Americans are employed in one entity or another. And I think that's something that we need to work on. So that, and one aspect that we can work on is on the small business hours, where we encourage people to be able to start their businesses. So instead of having baby showers only, instead of having a party for our baby, then we can have a party for someone that is going to start a business, and then in that sense, then they can start their entity, they can start their company, their business, and knowing full well they have the backing of their friends. We don't need to be so afraid of starting a business. We don't need to be so afraid. And I think if we have the right capital and the right customers, we don't need to be so afraid. I think everyone has an idea of one thing they would like to start, but what happens is that most of us are too afraid to enact on that idea, and I think that is the fear that we need to keep away. That fear that you cannot start a business. That is the thing that we cannot we must be able to push away that fear that basically if I start a business, it will fail. And even that business you're going to be employed from. Look at someone like Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon. Of course, he has retired as the CEO. Jeff Bezos, I think, is one of the top 10 richest men in the world. I think he has a fortune of about $150 billion or thereabouts. When he was starting his company, Amazon, of selling books at that time, selling books over the internet was unheard of. Not even selling books, just selling anything over the internet was unheard of. But what did Jeff Bezos do? He basically coded that website and basically started selling books over the internet, and of course his parents were concerned that basically their son was going nuts. Instead of getting a hedge fund manager job, I think he is a graduate from Princeton. He was a student at Princeton, so basically you can imagine someone from Princeton, very highly decorated college, a very elite college in America. Basically someone that graduates from Princeton expects to get a very good and lucrative job. But what did Jeff Bezos do? He started coding a website to be able to sell books over the internet. A very radical idea at the time. I think it was 1994 or between 94 and 96 or thereabouts, where he started selling books over the internet. This was a very radical idea. But you can imagine Jeff Bezos worked on his idea and then basically started selling books over the internet, and that is what became of Amazon. So it became one of the richest companies in the world, and making Jeff Bezos one of the richest men in the world. I think he has about a 16% stake in the company, so of course that makes him one of the wealthiest people in the United States. So we can, if we encourage more people to be able to form companies, if we encourage more people to be able to start businesses, then there will be entrepreneurship basically is about innovation. Then America will be at the absolute bleeding edge of innovation. In this age when there are so many businesses that could be formed from our ideas, what separates us from forming, what separates an idea from becoming a fully fledged business is actually enactment by the entrepreneur. That we need to discard away that fear that what if it fails. I think that is what really discussed. There are so many people sitting on $1 billion idea, not even $1 billion, $1 trillion idea, but they are sitting on it, very afraid that if they enact that business, then they could go. And then they could go out of business, and I think that is what we need to work on. We really need to work on how we can get out of the ground, enact our idea, share our idea, look for investors if we can, or basically you start with angel investors. So basically you start with your credit card. When it runs out, then you go to your angel investors, your friends, your family, and then of course after that after they have sustained you for a while, then you go towards venture capital, of course making sure that you don't dilute your shares very much. And I think if we formed companies that are based on that, if we formed companies that are based on if we formed companies that are based on if we form the companies that are based on enacting our ideas, then basically there will be more innovation. And if there are more companies formed, then that means the economy of America will be renewed. I think America right now ranks at number 4. It used to rank at number 1, but it ranks as number 4 in terms of the important place of doing business in America. And I think if that happens, then basically we are going to be we are going to see innovation thrive in America. So I would like to see more small business showers. I would like to see more business showers, not just baby showers, but business showers that are going to ensure that basically we have people that when you want to start a business, then they come together, they bring invoices, they bring desks, they bring office chairs, they even become the first customers. And if we do that, then there will be more businesses formed. And if more businesses form, that means more people get employed and the economy of America revitalizes. I don't think this fear that we have that if someone is bright, then they have to be employed. I don't think we need that fear at all. We can have someone working on an innovative idea, and then they are able to bring the ideas to ground. And if they launch the ideas, if these people launch the ideas, then they can have a fledgling company. Then they create the kind of a clean, decent, rewarding jobs that basically will put America at the absolute bleeding edge of innovation, or even the world, not just America alone, but I think even the world. And if we do that, then there will be more people that will be able to there will be more people that will be able to come along and basically there will be more people that will come along and basically help us along. So what do you think of small business hours? So you let me know in the comment section. Then from ideas I will move over to a bit of politics in the making America. So what does Donald Trump need to do differently if he is to win again in 2024? That is, what does Donald Trump need to do differently if he is to win in 2024. First of all, Donald Trump is going for a rematch with Joe Biden. If everything holds constant, then he is likely the Republican nominee for the White House in upcoming elections next year in November. So basically, Donald Trump is the candidate to beat. The rest is his to lose. That is Donald Trump, of course. And now Donald Trump is the modern prophet of the Republican Party. A very unlikely figure, but Donald Trump is the modern prophet of the Republican Party. Maybe he could maybe even surpass the stature of that is Ronald Reagan, because most Republicans, at least the old Republican Party that is now dying in bits, that is the old Republican Party, they consider Ronald Reagan with the spirit of deregulation, that is the government is the problem, let it get out of the way, that is the spirit of Ronald Reagan. So of course many Republicans consider Donald Trump as the modern prophet of the Republican Party. So Donald Trump is about to surpass the stature of Ronald Reagan. I don't think quite he has matched the stature of Abraham Lincoln. I think Abraham Lincoln is the all out Republican that is all-time great. That is Abraham Lincoln. Of course, he abolished slavery, and of course, he preserved the Union. That makes him the greatest American president. I think that makes him the greatest American president. If you ask so many people, of course, I think Barack Obama ranks number 8 when you rank American presidents of all time. So basically, Donald Trump, he is the modern prophet of the Republican Party, and he says the Republican Party is no longer the party of the Bushes and the Reagans. Of course, Donald Trump came along and shifted, remade the Republican Party. It is now a Trump personality cult. Of course, you had Hillary Clinton saying basically that a lot of Americans, a lot of Trump supporters need to be deprogrammed. So you can be sure that a lot of Republicans took issue with that, took offense with that. They say, yes, we are, of course, Hillary Clinton called Trump supporters deplorables. Deplorables, of course, some say this is why Hillary Clinton lost the election in that place, because of looking down on Donald Trump supporters. So they say when Donald Trump says that basically these are deplorables, and of course Trump supporters wore it with a lot of glamour that they are a proud deplorable. That is, they are proud deplorable. So you can imagine Donald Trump. So what does he need to do differently? I think Donald Trump needs to round off his rough edges, and of course especially mute his low vibrational energy. I think Donald Trump needs to shift towards economic matters. So he needs to make sure to say that basically rally around economic issues. I think the number one defining issue for Americans is the declining middle class. I think the middle class in America is disappearing, and Trump needs to rally around that and say the middle class is disappearing. And so basically, let's forge a way forward in which we can revive the American middle class. And if the American middle class is basically revived, then you can be sure that America will be on a path to prosperity. And I think you heard Donald Trump. He used to hold a lot of Made in America summits. That is Donald Trump for you. So he wanted to revive the manufacturing sector. He wanted to revive the manufacturing sector. I think he had very strong points on that, and he used to hold a series of rallies in the White House. Donald Trump used to hold a series of rallies in the White House dubbed Made in America Summit. So he wants the manufacturing jobs in America to return because the manufacturing jobs are so dependable. The manufacturing jobs were so dependable, and of course, you could safely rely on a manufacturing job to give you a strong middle class. And I think the platform-based economies, the digital economy, is creating a sea of underclass, and I think the platform-based economies are creating a sea of underclass, and I think in that sense, then they are not very reliable middle class jobs. But I think for manufacturing jobs, the beauty about manufacturing jobs is that they could employ anyone from a grade to dropout to a high-flying a high-flying doctorate holder. So you could be a doctorate holder, but also be a kindergarten dropout, a grade 2 dropout, but still you could find a job in a factory that could assure you of a middle class job. And I think America, if it is not very careful soon, it will be like third world countries in which there are only two classes. Either you are a billionaire or a pauper, nothing in between. So as the middle class in America disappears, it is the middle class that has brought about American prosperity. That is, it is the middle class that has brought about American prosperity. And if the middle class disappears in America, then you can be sure that basically America will cease to be great. And I think this will be at the end of the glory days of America. So I think for Donald Trump, then he needs to coalesce around the economy. For Donald Trump, he needs to coalesce around the economy, say that the middle class is disappearing, bring back the manufacturing jobs. And how does he do that? He has to round off his rough edges, quit this low vibrational energy, quit this that is lacking away at minorities, backing at minorities, basically, and say that we rally around the middle class so that you can't have economic issues. I think America has to have a post-racial society in which now it is not the racial warfare but a class warfare. I think that is what Donald Trump needs to do. I think he needs to rally around economic issues and say the middle class is disappearing, and let me fight for the middle class so that you can have a middle class that basically you can have an America that has a middle class that then the Americans could rally around. And I think that is how Donald Trump is going to. I think that is how Donald Trump is going to basically ensure that he wins again if he rallies around. And I think polls show that basically Donald Trump is ahead of Joe Biden in five key battleground states. So you can be sure that Donald Trump is ahead of Joe Biden, of President Biden, in five key battleground states. And I think that means that basically if Trump maintains that momentum, then that he will he will beat Joe Biden in the September poll. So you can be sure about that, and so you let me know on how you think. You should be letting me know on how you think President Biden or how you think Donald Trump can win the upcoming November elections next year, on how you think he could win. For me, he just needs to rally around economic issues and forget about this rounding. He should be rounding off his rough edges so that he seizes racial warfare but beams rallies around a class warfare, and that is the way that Trump is going to win again. And traditionally, the Republican Party has been the party of prosperity. It is only recently that the Republican Party became the party of the downtrodden American. But I think the Republican Party has to return and be the party of the downtrodden American, and I think the Republican Party has to return and be the party of prosperity. And I think in that case, then that is how I foresee Donald Trump winning the White House again. Of course, some fear that Trump will be able to do those things that he was not able to do in his first term. So, of course, he says the DOJ, the Department of Justice, is weaponized against him. And, of course, he says when he becomes president, he will go after the Biden. Basically, he says that Biden is one of the most corrupt presidents in American history. So that is Joe Biden for you. So that is Joe Biden. That is Donald Trump for you. He needs to rally around economic issues so that he can rally around the Made in America Summit. So that's it for now. And then I will move over to Africa perspectives. And in Africa perspectives, I'm asking, can Africa claim the 21st century? Can Africa claim the 21st century? It has been said that the 21st century will be claimed by Asia. That is, it has been said that the 21st century will be the Asian century. So they say, look at the rise of China, basically, which lifted about 500 million people in just about 30 years. So, of course, that provides a very huge counterweight to the West. Of course, you have China. Now it is the economy of China will support the economy of the United States in the not too distant future. I think right now the economy of China is just about $20 trillion. I think it's about $17 trillion. So the economy of the United States is about $20 trillion. Although I think in the terms of the standards of living, I think China is very much a developing country, and I think China still considers itself a developing country. It does not emerge to be a country. It does not emerge to be a first world country. Of course, for China to achieve the same standards of living as the West or as the United States, it needs about a 30-40 trillion dollar economy. Although I don't think it will reach there for now, but I think it can support the economy of the United States in the not too distant future. And I think this will very much I think this will very much mean that China could overtake the United States in very, very short time to come. And of course, you have China, then you have India. India, of course, wobbled because of its democracy, created bureaucracy, but of course, it is also up there. It has a middle class of about 300 million people. So basically, a lot of companies usually look to China, and then, of course, the next destination is India. So you can see these two Asian behemoths, China and India, have a very huge economy. Then you can see the Asian tigers, the likes of Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, South Korea. They went from from third world to first world in a generation. So you can imagine that they provide a case study for a lot of development economies who see that indeed you can beat poverty. Of course, a lot of development economies in the 1950s and 1960s had said that basically Africa will develop fast because of its mineral resources. But of course, it did not happen. It is Asia which developed fast. Asia has no mineral resources to match Africa. But of course, the problem with Africa is about an inept leadership, and that is why Africa did not evolve to be to be a superpower. So basically, for Africa, it's about the inept leadership. I think you have a lot of taxation. You have these dictators that are repressing their people politically, but they're not giving them economic rights as the Asian dictators did. So you have the likes of Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore. He was an authoritarian. Even as he developed Singapore, he was an authoritarian. Basically, he did not entertain dissent, but in exchange for that, he gave his people economic rights. So he moved Singapore from a third world backwater port city to a first world financial center of the world. So basically, you can see Singapore basically moving from third world to first world in just a generation. While African countries, no African country has been able to lift their people out of poverty, and so that means then that Africa still has a long way to go in terms of leading their people out of poverty. And I think that needs to end. I think Africa needs to be the needs to fix its leadership so that you can have a leadership that is about, you can't have a leadership that basically takes care of their people, a leadership that is very much a leadership that very much takes care of the people, a leadership that very much a leadership that very much takes the people to the promised land. I don't think that's the kind of leadership you find in Africa today. I think in Asia they have a lot of benevolent dictators so that they repress their people politically but economically they are liberated. So you can imagine China and India together, they have two-thirds of the world's engineering PhDs. That is China and India. They have two-thirds of the world's engineering PhDs. So you can imagine they will be able to steer their country. They will be able to come forward and steer their country towards to be at the absolute bleeding edge of innovation. And I think if that happens, then China and Asia will still continue to lead the 21st century. But for Africa, Africa has the resources. I think about 5 million graduates, college graduates, are churned out by African universities every year. So that means that there is a cheap labor in Africa, cheap labor that is highly qualified, and I think the likes of the big companies such as Nike, they need to set up their operations in Africa, and I think that is the way that you can create an Africa that is at the absolute bleeding edge of innovation. So, do you think the 21st century can also be claimed by Africa? That is, do you think the 21st century can also be claimed by Africa? So, let me know in the comment section. So then after that I will move over to in terms of after that I will move over to heart and soul. And in heart and soul, what does it mean to have faith that moves mountains? In heart and soul, I'm asking, what does it mean to have faith that moves mountains? Of course, the Bible refers to Abraham as the father of faith. So they say Abraham had real they say that Abraham really had a faith that moved mountains. He was told he will be a father of many nations. But remember, at that time, Abraham really did not have, at that time, really, Abraham did not even have a kid of his own. Of course, he had a kid, he had a child with his servant, Haggai, but of course, that is Ishmael. But of course, that is his wife, Sarah, did not have a child. And of course, when he was told that he would be a father of many nations, the grandchildren, that the ancestry, the descendants of Abraham would be like the stars in the sky, would be like the sand in the sea. Of course, Abraham did not believe it, but it became to be. So they say that Abraham is the father of many nations. So how do you have faith that moves mountains? I think number one is just having an absolute sense of determination. If you have an absolute sense of determination, then I think you can have faith that moves mountains. And I think if you have faith that moves mountains, you will see a light whereas others only see darkness. And I think that is the way to be able to have faith that moves mountains. And I think if you have faith that moves mountains, then you can cause an impact in your society. You can be very impactful. As a Christian, you can be very impactful in your society. And I think that is the way to have faith that moves mountains. I think the world lacks faith. I think a lot of people who are supposed to do things are not the ones doing it. It is very surprising that someone who has maybe the money, the ideas, is the one that does not believe in themselves, but someone who totally lacks these things comes along and then basically does wonders for the world. And I think that way, I think if you have a goal, then you just have to be absolutely determined in order to accomplish that goal. Never mind the obstacles that you will face. I think everyone will face obstacles in many ways, but I think you need to be able to, I think you really need to be able to I think you really need to be able to sit down, write your goal, and then just embark on. I think they say I think what a motivational speaker states is that you start with the end goal in mind and then you work backwards. I think they say that you start with the end goal in mind. If you want a company, if you want a big church, imagine how this one will be, and then you work backwards towards where you are. That is the way to be able to overcome all the obstacles, so that even if you face difficulties along the way, but if you know what you are going to do, then you are going to be able to rally around and maybe bring all the resources you need so that you can have you can achieve your goals to the highest standards. I think that is the way to do it. That is, you start with the goal in mind, and then you can work your way backwards. And I think if you do that, then you are going to really maybe have that faith that moves mountains, and that is the way you're going to cause impact in the world. Frankly, the world needs these things. A lot of the world people are in darkness, but when you see the light, then it is upon you to bring light to the world. And I think if you do that, then you can be able to achieve tremendous things, and of course help a society along the way, and of course being a good person along the way. And I think if you do that, then the world will be better for it. So that's it for now. I have looked at ideas. I've looked at the concept of small business showers. Instead of only having baby showers, we can also have small business showers. And then in Remaking America, I looked at what does Donald Trump need to do in order to win in 2024. And then in Africa perspective, I would say everyone believes that Asia will claim the 21st century, but can Africa also claim, can Africa also claim the 21st century? And then in heart and soul, I will look, what does it mean to have faith that moves mountains? So that's it for now. Bye for now. So that's it for now. This has been Mabinda TV. This is home of Compassionate Conservatism, in which I advocate for a fine balance, a sweet spot between individual creative genius excellence as afforded by capitalism and society excellence as afforded by equality of opportunity. So in essence, you are calling for capitalism with a human first, that is capitalism with a human first.